Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Ipswich here on the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Tom and I am flying solo today for the first time on the Daily Ipswich. The rest of the lads enjoying their fruitful labour on the weekend, so it's just myself taking you through what was a very, very positive result for Ipswich Town. We had a string of bad results following our draw at Fulham in January, then the double-headed monster of Man City and Liverpool, and then the disappointment of Southampton. But going up to Villa Park on the weekend, considering our draw against them earlier in the season, I think a lot of us, for good reason, were relatively confident, albeit after our brilliant FA Cup victory against Coventry as well, but managed to get a really, really good result at Villa Park with 1-1. Obviously, I'm going to go through the game with you guys here, but we'll go straight to just my reaction to the result. I thought it was a really, really good point. If you look at how the weekend turned out, with Leicester losing 2-0 at the death in the early kickoff on Saturday, thanks to a Marino brace there at the end. And then we had to sort of wait until Sunday with Wolves going up to, luckily for us, Anfield. No easy place to play there, that's for sure, considering how great Slot's side have been performing this season. And despite their best efforts of a 2-1 loss there for Wolves, a result that very much benefited Town, with us now only 2 points behind Wolves, us on 17 and Wolves in 19th. So we are still very much in this relegation race, which I think is all we wanted. Awful scenario this weekend could have been us losing and Wolves winning and being 6 points behind, but we're only 2 points behind. So a draw, everyone always wants to win, but a draw is a really, really good result considering how great Aston Villa have been at home this season, how great they've been for the past few years, and especially just of us, just needed a point, didn't we? We needed some positivity. It's been a really, really tough couple of weeks or games, I should say. So any positive result after Southampton, the games before, like I said, we just needed it and we got it. So yeah, I'm just going to go through the game with you guys. So we'll start with the lineups. So we returned to our, at the start anyway, returned to our 4-2-3-1 with Dara O'Shea and Greaves in the middle, Ben Twanzebe on the right, and Connor Townsend in for Leif Davis. First sort of anomaly in the lineup there compared to the usual showing of Leif Davis. This is apparently due to a late injury. McKenna said after the game that it wasn't anything to be that too concerned of. So obviously we'd like to hope that Leif Davis could be around for Spurs next week. But I think we're all in agreement here that Connor Townsend put in a great performance. You know, hasn't really had that many chances to prove himself this season. We've kind of said in this pod, haven't we, in the nicest possible way, if Connor Townsend isn't playing, that means Leif Davis is fit, which is what we all want because he's a fantastic player. But you know, he's been in the Premier League for a few seasons in the past of West Brom. Proven player, experienced player, which is what you need at this point of the season. And he put in a really, really good shift. A dangerous slide tackles down the left side, but went in confidently and got the ball on most occasions. So that was a really, really good thing from him to see. It's an area of the field you think when Davis goes out, we are maybe losing that threat going forward. But defensively, I thought we were just as sound with Townsend there on the right. I forgot to mention him. Obviously, I'm going to mention him a lot more on the show. Don't you worry, guys. But we had Palmer in goal for his first Premier League start after his brilliant display against Coventry the week beforehand in the FA Cup. But it was his first Premier League start for the club. Like I said, I'll get more into the Palmer-ness of his performance later on in the show. But moving forward to the midfield pairing, another surprise injury with our captain Sam Morsey not featuring in the game as well. I think it's the thing with Town. It's like you love it, you hate it, don't you, in terms of our injury announcements, because as we try and do our best for you guys, I'm sure you guys do at home as well, try and predict your lineup ahead of any game we have. You kind of assume Morsey's always going to be there, you know, being our captain and just how great he's been the past few years. Maybe if you heard mine and Richard's discussion on Friday ahead of the game, maybe Morsey, our midfield pairing, it's hard to get right. But we had Calvin Phillips and Jens Kayuste, and I thought Calvin Phillips, obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I thought it was one of his best performances in a Town shirt. Wasn't too afraid to go forward. That's been one of my criticisms on a lot this season, is that he hasn't really ventured forward. He's just, the standard sideways pass into the full-backs and playing it safe for centre-backs, but really brave on occasions. That was good to see. And Jens Kayuste, I think in that area of the field, he's been our best player this season. And again, it wasn't a poor performance from him. Moving into the midfield three, we saw Amari Hutchinson on the right, Julio Enciso in the middle, and then who was it on the left? Sorry, I apologise, guys, because it was a kind of a chop and change. Oh, we saw, Ben Johnson. Actually, it was Ben Johnson on the sort of right side as well, wasn't it? So I think just bringing him forward, I think when we were on the ball, he was going on the right wing. When we were off the ball, kind of reverting back to a 5. And really, really, I think, confident start from those three. Obviously, Wes will get into the nitty-gritty of the game. That those three didn't really have much of a time together on the field before an unfortunate injury for Enciso came through. I think my biggest sort of surprise of that front three going into the game, and we kind of called it, or predicted it, I should say, ahead of the game last week, was we were expected to see Jaden Philogene starting. He obviously brought in for a fair bit of money, seemingly a quality player there, and against his old club. And I thought this would have been a great time for him to get his first start for the club. And you'd like to have thought that his motivation would have been really, really great going to the game. Maybe it was, but we did not see him for the entire 94, 5 minutes it was. So we might have to wait until Spurs next week to see him start in the Town shirt. But the players in the positions he would have wanted to occupy also put in a great shift as well. Really good performance from Murray Hutchinson. We'll get into that in a bit as well. So great from there. And then obviously up top, our man Liam Dilap netting another goal. Again, I think his 10th of the season. Just such a reliable hand, isn't he? No matter if it's 10 men or we're not expected to get it from the game, you can always assume he's going to get at least one chance and take it. And he did just that. So we'll get into that as well. I think we'll take our first break of the show here, guys, and then we'll come back. We'll dissect the first half and all the moments that happened there.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back here on the Daily Ipswich, looking back at Town's 1-1 draw at Villa Park this past weekend. As I said, going into the break there, guys, we're going to have a look at the first half here. And I thought, it's kind of expected really at the start of the game, a bit of early pressure from the home side. You'd like to think we would do the same if we were playing at home as well, but I thought we nullified really any attempts that came through. Some really good clearances from Dara O'Shea, which are a common theme now for his performance. I think, he donned the captain armband with Morsey out for injury, but I thought he looked really, really great again. It's one of those players, isn't it? We've I don't know about everyone listening at home, but especially at the start of the season, we really went in on him just because we were a bit perplexed as to why he brought him in. But as the season's gone, he's been a most reliable hand at the back. And, the odd cameo from Burgess and Wolford in here and there, and, Greaves injuries haven't really helped him out. O'Shea's been that one constant really throughout the season, give or take the first couple of games of the year. And he's just improved and improved as it's gone. And I think his confidence has stemmed from possibly just being a bit more assured of himself. It's a new team. It's not easy to hit the ground running for a centre-back. But the more that's gone on, and I think also the manager's faith in him and starting every game and giving him the captain armband when Morsey's out injured has really, really helped improve his confidence. And we're seeing that in his performances. That's really great to see. Pressure did mount a bit. And then after that, I think after the game's kind of mellowed out ever so slightly, we did manage to go forward a few times with some few good passes down on the left side. Biggest moment, I think, from a Town perspective in the early part of the game was, unfortunately, Enciso's injury. Looked really lively at the start, had a shot at the edge of the box, which was comfortably saved by Emi Martinez, but it shows that he's got that in his locker to have a go, which is always a really, really positive trait to see in an attacking player. I believe it's a knee injury. We haven't obviously been given the time frame because it's not like in Town to do that, but it does seem, the way he went down, just he immediately knew, didn't he? Took his, shin pads off and tape off on his, it was his right leg, and just you knew he was out. It's such a shame. He's obviously one of the players he brought in January who we really hope can make a difference, and hopefully he can recover relatively soon and make a difference on the pitch. But proper shame that to see Enciso go off because, like I said, he had a really, really good start to the game. On came Jack Clarke for him, fresh off his brace against Coventry the week before. I was pleasantly surprised with Jack Clarke in this game. I don't know about you guys. I think really, really positive going forward. Later in the second half, some really good tackles defensively as well. But just, it was, I think, a good performance from Jack Clarke considering this season we kind of haven't seen what we wanted to see of him. And I'm fairly sure he's not very been happy with many of his performances as well. But I think that was a nice little cameo we had from him in the first half. Obviously, we'll go into the reason why he wasn't there in the second half in a short period. Actually, you know what? Let's go to that right now. Axel Twanzebe, very much called Agent Axel by a lot of Villa fans I've seen online over the weekend. Obviously, he did have a spell there when they got promoted to the Premier League a few years ago, Aston Villa. And I think, let's be honest, I don't know about you guys, but I think there's a kind of justifiable red card as the two yellows went on. That's the thing, isn't it? When you're playing such an attacking side like Aston Villa with, Ramsey and Rodgers as well, just those two as a pair. Watkins and Marlon to an extent, but those two, I think Rodgers and Ramsey were just so just fluid in their techniques and just really got in there. And I think it was a lot for our defence to handle at the start of the game. And we saw that Tuanzebe was unfortunately the unlucky one to get a second yellow, because we saw Greaves obviously get a yellow as the game went on as well. And just, gave away a free kick in a really unfortunate spot, and he went out. Tuanzebe's been such a difficult one all season, hasn't he? He's either out for injury or, here getting a red card, so he's going to miss the next game at least. But so that was a real shame. And also, after him going off, it did obviously mean, I think we would have a draw, and we did get a draw. I think going into this game, a draw would have been a really, really good result, like I said, considering the quality of the opposition. But being down 10 men at Villa Park after, only half an hour, I believe, when Tuanzebe went off. Yeah, just a 28-minute mark, 40-minute mark he went off. So just after the half-hour mark, Tuanzebe went, we were down to 10 men just before the stroke of half-time. And I think that was it, wasn't it? Going into the end of the first half, you just want to make sure you don't concede. I think I heard a stat from the commentary during the game that we have conceded the most goals in the last 50 minutes of the first half this season than any other team. And there's been a lot of goals I can think back to that occasion. So it was kind of fresh in the mind of, this may happen again. And especially of one of our best defenders going off, you thought this is definitely going to happen. But really, really good defensive performance from the team there. I think going into the half at 0-0 was fantastic, considering being down to 10 men. It allowed us to reassess our shape. We did have to revert back to 5 at the back, which meant at the start of the second half, we saw Jack Clarke, who did come on later after his injury, had to go off for Wolfenden at the start of the second. But going to that 5 at the back, we did then see a bit of a just parking the proverbial bus, wasn't it? And really, really hoping that we wouldn't concede anything there. But I thought really, really good first half all in all. Few chances, as we had chances with few and far between, but considering the quality of opposition and then also the red card and the Enciso injury, there are a lot of things there that really, if you look at that, you would expect to concede a goal. And the fact that we didn't, I thought, put us in really, really good stead going into the second half. And with going to the second half, we'll take our final break of the show, and then I can dissect the last 45 minutes of the game.
This podcast is brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting, with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. It's your one-stop shop for your daily football fix, and you can find all podcasts on the GSBN network on all your usual streaming platforms. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
And we are back here on the final part of the Daily Ipswich. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Yes, so second half started 0-0 going into the break, but coming back out with only 10 men. So I think obviously that 5 minutes of holding off against Aston Villa, I think maybe there's a slight expectancy of that, considering it was a bit of a Villa has also had to change their attacking system. But coming out at the start of the second half, we saw both sides making changes. Like I said, Jack Clarke, after coming off on the 17th minute in the first, came off, unfortunately, at the start of the second for Luke Wolfenden as we look to strengthen our defence. Aston Villa very much the opposite, but to strengthen their attack with Marcus Rashford coming on and Maatsen Ferdinand, both left backs, but Maatsen's got a bit more of an attacking sense about him. And you really saw that right from the offset, especially Marcus Rashford. I'll mention Marcus Rashford here. I think, it's a big move for him. He's been at Manchester his entire career, and albeit a loan move, I think this is what he exactly needed to do. Manchester United is not the place to be right now, as we saw Sunday's result as well. And he just needed to get out there, really, didn't he? And find his feet, find his confidence. And really, he was one of them, I think, their most threatening player in the second half from that left side. Really dangerous runs. Obviously, we did manage to stop him a few times, but there were occasions when he did manage to get a shot off or two. And he's going to be a handful for whoever plays Aston Villa, whether that's in the Premier League or the Champions League, that's for sure. But that was a big, big statement from Aston Villa, bringing him on in the second half. It also shows where they are as a club, the fact they can have a player of that quality come off the bench. It's such a luxury to have, but I don't see him coming off the bench that much in the near future. I fully expect to start, but that means Ramsey or Rodgers or someone like that might have to make way, which, considering how those two have been this season and recently, you really can't see happening. But it's a good problem for Aston Villa to have. Anyway, we're not on the podcast, but yeah, I think Rashford put in a good performance there. Despite all that fantastic early pressure that Villa put in, we managed to get the first goal. And I think we always look a bit threatening going forward away from home. It's just this sort of, I always say it, there's a sort of like sense of abandon we have when we play away from home. And I just feel we can nick something. I think it did help the fact that Villa's defence was quite shaky in terms of who they had at the back there. Going into the game with a lot of injuries, I think of like Conser, and there was just many other injuries out for Villarreal. So we saw, who was it, Kamara and Disassi start at the centre-back pairing for them, which Disassi, coming in from Chelsea, is obviously a good player in there, but the player we've seen at Chelsea the past year or so, that hasn't really been the case. And, it's a chance for him to show what he can really do. But I was quite confident going against him. I'm sure the rest of the team were as well, considering how flaky he can be at times. And Kamara's a centre mid, so he's not a starting centre back. He's a very good player, but he's not usually playing there. So it was quite a. You look at that sort of lineup and you think there's a chance to do something here, and do that exactly we did. The way the goal started, I mean, I'm sure you guys like me have watched it on replay on many, many occasions, but the way the goal started was a fantastic lofted switch ball from Ben Johnson over the entire field to Amari Hutchinson. And given the height the ball went, you'd have to be a quality player and some fantastic to control to bring that ball down safely and not have it bobble out for a throw or go to the opposition. And it's a fantastic touch. Amari Hutchinson, really, really well taken. Put us in great stead going forward. Then up against, I believe it was Maatsen on the right side there, managed to get the beating of him, cross it into the box with a lot of Villa players in the box. So it's not easy, but again, before getting onto the ball, Liam Dilap, his movement being behind one of the centre-backs, but having the wherewithal to go across the face and just let the ball's momentum do the rest of the work. He got a bit of a foot in it, went across the face. Martinez had no chance of getting it, and we went 1-0 up. And, if you asked me at the start of the game, even with 11 men, would we take the lead at Villa Park? I would have said no. I think that's, it's nothing against the club, our club. It's just the quality that Aston Villa have and how well they've been at home this season. But really, really well taken goal. And yes, it's great to take a lead. Of course it is. Fantastic limbs from the away fans. Again, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it on social media, but brilliant from our away fans. We just have such incredible sport away from home. Just the rhetoric behind us as a club is so great at the moment. And I think one of the reasons, but because of that, is our away fan base. They just never stop singing. Like you hear at the start of the kickoff, bit of attention. You hear at the start of the kickoff with like us singing Hey Ipswich in the form of Hey Jude, like we do at every home game at Portman Road. But we do it for the away game because they know it's going to help our players feel a bit more familiar and at home, so to speak. So that was really, really good to see. And just, well taken goal from Dilap. I mean, we've talked about him to the cows from home, haven't we? And I don't want to speak too pessimistically, but let's enjoy him while we can. If we stay up, maybe we'll hold on to him, but it's going to take a Herculean effort if that is the case to keep his boots at Portman Road next season, because he is prime and ready for a big club and a big opportunity. But for now, he is our number 9, despite the fact he's got 19 in the back of his shirt, and he is looking like that player and more, that guy and more. Thomas Tuchel maybe looking at him come a few weeks when he makes his first squad for England as well. But fantastic goal by Liam Dilap once again, as he always does, to put us in the lead. From there, I obviously was speaking, I know the lads aren't here on today's show, but I was obviously speaking to the lads from the pod on our group chat during the game. And James quite rightly said, now let's take that grin and bear it for the onslaught, because, just approaching the hour mark after Dilap scored, we were already on the back foot defensively anyway, but it was even more the case with Villa being 1-0 down, wanting to get that equaliser. So it was just kind of, I don't want to say panic stations, but, kind of all backs to the wall and just defend that lead for your life, which, as we should have. After Dilap's goal, we did see another big statement substitution-wise from Aston Villa. That was Marco Asensio coming on. Again, another player. The quality that Villa have to bring him off the bench is ridiculous. And he, despite the fact, latter stages of 20 and never played in the Premier League before, he looks right at home, doesn't he? So I'm sure Villa will be really, really chuffed with that signing. Before I get to our goalkeeping heroics, because I know you guys are waiting for it, but I'm going to just keep on teasing you. We'll get to Villa's equalising goal. Not the best of finishes. I think maybe a lot of us might have expected to concede, considering the amount of time left, the quality that Villa had. But I thought we were really, really good defensively. I think that's why the way Villa scored was that odd goal, wasn't it? I mean, a fantastic. I'm not going to take anything away from Rashford. A fantastic free kick, but just cannoned off the bar. Palmer really couldn't get to that. And then awkward bounce and well taken from Ollie Watkins to equalise the Villa. Excuse me. So, like I said, you don't want to concede, but if we were to concede, I guess there's some solace in the fact that we couldn't have really done anything about it, because when we were able to do something about it, we did, and that was why I think we only conceded one goal in this game, and it was a really jammy way of doing it. But we conceded 1-1. I had a lot of draws this season, and with 20 minutes plus added time on the clock, there was a lot of us, and I think for good reason, considering how a lot of games have gone this season, you did kind of think the writing was on the wall and Villa were going to get a second, but they did not. And the reason they did not was partly due to our great new goalkeeper, Alex Palmer. Like I said, I was going to wait till the end to talk about him, because I know he's been like the most talked about player, maybe in the Premier League this weekend, not just for Ipswich, but the most talked about player in the Premier League, despite maybe Marmoush for Man City, because he got that really, really quick hat-trick. But for us, flipping heck. I mean, guys, we've talked a lot about Muric, haven't we, this season? And there's a lot of errors that he's put in goal. And for Burnley last year, and coming into the season, a lot of people from other pods, and us included, were questioning that signing. And the club obviously, after a while, despite wanting to put their faith in him, realised it wasn't the right move as well. Bringing Walton in, that unfortunate injury for him appeared, which kind of tied our hands where they were. Luckily, it was January, and we're able to bring in West Brom's goalkeeper, who I think for West Brom in the Championship this season had about 11 clean sheets. So despite the fact it's a league below, he was obviously well versed at defending his goal throughout the season. And he did it again. Like I said, really nothing he could do about the equaliser, but when he could do something about it and the shots were coming straight at him, he did exactly that, didn't he? I mean, the amount of shots he stopped, excuse me, guys. When you're on your own like this, your throat gets a wee bit dry. I apologise, but I'll do my best. Water has replenished me. Yes, so Alex Palmer, what can we say about him? Just fantastic saves. I think one of the earlier ones we saw from him was Asensio on the edge of the box trying to cut across with his left, go towards the keeper's bottom right-hand corner, and a really well-stretched save. With a lot of players in front of him, it's hard to see the ball coming through at that speed, and again, it would have been a quality finish from Asensio, but a really, really good save. I've noticed a few, I think there was a corner where he did a really good save again. The one that's done the rounds on socials, and for good reason as well, was that one, I think it was the 92nd or maybe 89th minute, where Rashford had a really, really good run from the left side, as he did for most of the time when he came on. And he kind of shot where the ball kind of deflected towards Palmer's opposite end where his weight was. Like he maybe was on his left side, but the ball was coming to his right side. So to quickly sort of just, I know you guys can't see me, but I'm trying to do the movements he was doing in goal. And the fact that he got that save off, you saw the centre-backs and the rest of the team around him just sort of thanking him for that effort. Because, it's a one-off performance, and I was really, really chuffed for the guy. Of all the Premier League debuts to have, he looked a bit nervy at the start of the game, distribution-wise, not necessarily saves, but distribution, which is a key part for a goalkeeper these days. And I think that was maybe justified considering, he's 20, he's experienced, but it's still your Premier League debut. It can be a tough thing for a player. But you saw, it's a cliche, as the game went on, he came into his own, and he really, really did. It's a one-off performance so far in the Premier League for him, of course, but you'd like to think and you hope he can carry this on. And, we were chuffed with Walton after his performance against Chelsea. And, we might have forgotten this by now, we had this similar thing like this to Muric after the Brighton draw earlier this season. I'm not trying to put a dampener on this, but it's a game-by-game basis. And there's a lot of people saying right now, if we had Palmer for the whole season, we wouldn't even be in a relegation race because there'd be so many goals we wouldn't have conceded. And look, that may have been the case, but it's not where we are. So we have to just accept where we are and hope that where Palmer is now, there will be moments in the next couple of months now where we will now get points where with Muric we may not have got points. And again, it's not a slander on Muric, but it's just a possibility now that Palmer is the one between the sticks and not Muric, but we will see. But it's nice to have a bit of confidence with your goalkeeper going into the game now, isn't it? And also just a surety of who's going to start, especially in recent weeks with the chopping and changing Muric, people wanting, but it's not good to have in your change room when fans are pleading for someone else to take someone else's spot, and when it's a spot where only one player can occupy it, that does no good for anyone in terms of that uncertainty as to who's supposed to be in that spot. So I think for Palmer, that spot is his now. He's not going to lose at the end of the season unless just has some really, really poor moments in goal. But considering how great he was at Villa Park, I can't see that happening. But brilliant debut in the Premier League for Town for Alex Palmer, and hopefully long may it continue. So yeah, 1-1 draw at Villa Park, all things considered, a really, really good result. And another reason why it's a really, really good result, as I said at the top of the show, was how our relegation rivals fared this weekend. I think, Southampton, despite the fact they beat us, they are still a bit adrift, aren't they? But we saw the champions of the Championship, Leicester, opening the weekend against Arsenal, almost getting a draw until the 80th or so minute, where Marino came on and scored a really good double to sink Leicester's woes even more. And then we had to go until Sunday with Wolves against Liverpool, and they lost as well. And that was really, really good result for us. So again, we didn't win, but a draw, considering how everyone else performed this weekend, is a really, really good weekend for Town. And how often can we say that in the Premier League, especially the last few weeks? So I think despite the fact we're not out of the bottom three yet, a point gained is a point gained, and we have to take that. We've still got to play Wolves in a few weeks. We've still got to play Leicester. There are games. Those games are going to be massive for both clubs, but hopefully we can capitalise them on the most. And I really think, we're 2 points behind. We've played some great football. I really think we can do it. I think there's a reason to believe, guys, and I really, really think we should will this team on. We can play like this against these top sides. We just hope, and I know it's been a rarity this season, the Everton game, the Southampton game, the late result against Leicester, and there's been a few others as well, where we haven't managed to perform the way we'd like against clubs we could realistically get a result against. But hopefully that will change with our surety at the back now with Liam Dilap. 2 goals in his last 2 games. You'd like to think he's back to firing all cylinders. There's signs that we're improving. Hopefully injuries to Morsey and Ciso and Davis are only short ones and they can come back, the more the merrier. But, we saw in the likes of Townsend this weekend, who was able to fill his boots fantastically in a defensive way. So there's reasons to celebrate this weekend for sure. It's been a long time coming. I think a lot of the lads on the podcast will probably be a bit annoyed they weren't able to look back at this one, but a few of them will be back on tomorrow's show for Tactics Tuesday, where we will continue to look back at Town's 1-1 draw at Villa Park, but in a more detailed manner, looking at the formations, how both sides sort of fared throughout the game, and how, considering the injuries and cards, there was a lot of formation style changes and tactics changing, which we will fully get into, and also bring you any other Town news that comes your way Monday and Tuesday this week. But that is going to do it for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed the ride of me solo today. I guess that's my first time doing it. I can talk till the cows come home when it comes to Ipswich Town. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show, as you did, guys, enjoy Town's fantastic result this weekend at Villa Park. We will see you next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.